Smartphones are incredible. They let you learn languages, browse the web, chat with other people, and can help you get some exercise. But I don't want to use my phone. Thankfully, for all of this and more, our friend the Nintendo DS is technically a possible replacement. The DS is well known for its casual games, and plenty of casual non-games. Personal trainer cooking might not be the best experience, but it beats finding recipes on the internet. But one thing modern technology is definitely better at is tracking your exercise. Despite having a touchscreen, built-in Wi-Fi, a microphone, and two whole screens, Nintendo didn't give the DS any way of tracking any kind of exercise. No GPS and no pedometer. So if you want to stay in shape with it, you'll need some separate hardware. Thankfully, the DS got 3 different pedometers, though all of them work with different games. So if you like how one game handles things, but the pedometer looks like this, you're out of luck. The first one, and the one most people are probably aware of, is the Pokewalker. Pokemon has a problem. While you're playing Pokemon, that's great. But what happens when you put the game down? Well, you aren't playing Pokemon anymore. And if you stop playing Pokemon, you aren't thinking about Pokemon, and you might get into the habit of not thinking about Pokemon. You might stop wearing Pokemon branded clothing, stop collecting Pokemon cards. And there's only one solution. Always play Pokemon. Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver are remakes of Pokemon Gold and Silver. But whereas modern Pokemon remakes are content with just being remakes, Heart Gold and Soul Silver also got a number of pretty big changes. And they're good changes, like Kanto being closer to its original design, and there are more Pokemon available because the Generation 4 Pokédex is available. They also included a piece of plastic. The Pokewalker is basically an old attempt at letting you take your Pokemon with you wherever you go. So you don't have to leave your beloved Cyndaquil at home, you can finally take it to school with you. Wait a minute. Yeah, it doesn't have the same appeal when the game itself is already portable. The main reason to use the Pokewalker is to train your Pokemon while you walk. And for that use, it's pretty cool. It isn't like Pokemon Go, where you get exercise for the sake of playing the game, but if you're gonna mow a lawn or go on a hike, you might as well put this thing on. You can use the Pokewalker to catch new Pokemon, get items, and give transferred Pokemon experience points. The Pokewalker uses watts as a currency, and you get 1 watt every time you take 20 steps. Watts are used to unlock new areas and use other features, like catching Pokemon and finding items. So, how is the Pokewalker? Well, it's fine. As a weight loss tool, you would pretty much need to set your own goal, like raising a Pokemon to level 100 off of just walking. And sure, it's probably possible, but it's gonna be time consuming. And because the Pokewalker is more of a toy than a piece of exercise equipment, what it does for you depends on how useful it is in the game. Raising a Pokemon on this thing is cool, and you can get some pretty neat Pokemon in some of the later areas. You can also get some pretty good items if you're lucky, but the Pokewalker just isn't useful enough to justify using. Nowadays, the Pokewalker is most useful as a way to tell if a cartridge is legitimate or not. Heart Gold and Soul Silver have black, slightly transparent cartridges because the cartridge uses infrared to communicate with the Pokewalker. Fake cartridges almost always use a gray shell, like most DS cartridges. That's a pretty nice way to tell, since these games are bootlegged a lot. Despite Pokemon Black and White also using infrared, the Pokewalker isn't supported. And while it's possible that Gold and Silver will get another remake on the Switch, and while the Switch has infrared on the right Joy-Con, I'd say it's pretty unlikely that the Pokewalker will be supported. And I can count on one hand the number of people I expect to even notice. One series that had a lot of support on the DS is what I'll call the My Coach series. This series is basically the most casual thing you can use a DS for, so I'm sure we'll see more about it later on. But right now, we're looking at My Weight Loss Coach. This game is honestly not as bad as you'd expect, though calling it a game is a bit, wrong. This piece of software originally came with this pretty bulky pedometer. While the Pokewalker is a great way to identify nerds who care way too much about a 15-year-old accessory, the My Weight Loss Coach pedometer is a great way to identify someone who thinks the Stone of Agony from Ocarina of Time is the pinnacle of fashion. Not that it matters for me, the plastic on my pedometer got so weak over the years that the clip snapped off before I could even use it. And another downside about this pedometer is that it uses the Game Boy Advance cartridge slot to connect to the DS cartridge. And I only have a DSi. Am I really gonna buy a whole new system just to experience this one? So the software itself is actually pretty neat. It's important to keep in mind that this thing has one goal: to help you lose weight. It isn't designed to help you gain muscle or gain weight if you're underweight, and one of the big things keeping people from losing weight is their environment. If you don't know how to eat well, and you don't have a good support system, you'll have a harder time losing weight. And My Weight Loss Coach at least tries to help with that. The dialogue is all pretty positive. It doesn't reprimand you for your failures, it encourages you to work through them. The presentation is also really nice. It uses simple colors and friendly character designs. And I'm sure some people don't want a child's drawing telling them how to live their life, but it does one thing most other exercise games don't do. It avoids being intimidating. But while I look at this thing pretty positively, it does have some pretty significant limitations. The software is very keen on encouraging you to walk. That's why it came with this pedometer. But that's all it can track. It might tell you to do other exercises, but there's no way for it to know what you're doing. And because of that, it's a decent enough motivator, but if you aren't receptive to a bunch of pre-written, non-personalized text on a DS telling you what to do, you probably won't have a great time with this one. Last up is another one made by Nintendo, specifically a branch of Nintendo that mostly worked on infrastructure and other peripherals. And they also made the Pokewalker. But before they made the Pokewalker, they made what looks like an air freshener for your car. Personal Trainer Walking is the name of the software, and yes, I mean software. This isn't a game, it's a DS cartridge that, like My Weight Loss Coach, is more about tracking your steps than it is about being fun. Technically, I guess this piece of software is part of Nintendo's Personal Trainer series, but there's almost nothing connecting any of the games in that series, and Personal Trainer Walking resembles Wii Fit more than anything. And that isn't necessarily a bad thing. Wii Fit is a game that, if nothing else, gives you minigames that burn more calories than playing Twilight Princess. Though Skyward Sword might be a different story. All Personal Trainer Walking needs to do is something similar, but on a smaller scale. Instead, it offers almost nothing of value. The game comes with a black and a white pedometer that looks a lot more sleek than the other two. It's more generic, sure, but it fits the minimalistic look that Nintendo used a lot in this era. The pedometers look nice, they're compact, and while I love the design of the Pokewalker, I also see the value in having something more discreet. Unfortunately, the pedometer also doesn't really do anything other than track steps. It doesn't even show you how many steps you've taken. In order to use the pedometer, you need to send the data to the actual cartridge. And once again, this is done over infrared. The pedometer also knows when you've taken steps, and you can see a nice chart of the data in the actual software. Now, I gotta be honest, I didn't get this thing for its weight loss potential. I got it because I knew it was one of not many DS games that allows you to make a Mii. And yeah, it's cool to see a Mii Maker running on the DS, But then I tried the rest of what this had to offer, and while I wasn't disappointed because I only cared about the Mii Maker anyway, the game didn't exactly motivate me to take more walks. The minimalistic look of Wii Fit made it easier to get to the actual minigames. That same look in a piece of software that doesn't have anything to do just makes it more obvious that there isn't anything to do. And I wish there was more to do. They could have allowed you to record information about what you've been eating. They could have allowed you to see how many calories are in certain foods like Wii Fit Plus does. They could have at least let you keep a little journal that you write your feelings into. Instead, they don't even let you put your weight in. If a personal trainer did as little personal as personal trainer walking does, I'd probably want my money back. There was originally an online component, but like pretty much every DS game's online, it doesn't work anymore. And even when it did work, it was just an online leaderboard type thing, which I'm sure had no cheaters on it at all. While Personal Trainer Walking never got a sequel, it was basically made redundant when Nintendo released the 3DS. Step tracking, Mii making, and even a few upgrades like getting play coins when you walk. The only thing Personal Trainer Walking had going for it was the online, which was probably a selling point for some people, but for most people, the 3DS is just a better experience overall. Probably the most expensive sequel Nintendo ever made, though. If you want the best pedometer experience and you're willing to set your own goals, Pokewalker might just be the best option for you. If you want a decent all-around experience, my weight loss coach is pretty solid. And if you just want a piece of software that will track your steps and not much more, Personal Trainer Walking gets the job done. So hey, at least the software I bought this thing for turned out to be decent. But I think I'll just use my phone.